So our topic tonight is respect others and they will always respect you. Despise them and they'll find many ways to express their contempt. I wanted to start tonight because we've been in India now for about 3.5 weeks, and we'll actually be leaving in 2 weeks to go back to the U.S., and then we return again in the fall, in September. But because we have people watching us from different centers and online, we just wanted to take a moment to once again thank you all for the wonderful experience that we always have when we come to India. Your openness, your friendship, your receptivity to spiritual teachings is so inspiring to us and so gratifying. And every time we return to America, it feels as though we leave a little bit more of ourselves here in India, and so we keep coming back. But we just wanted to, we'll be going from here to Bangalore, where we'll have a Mahasamadhi retreat. Some of you will be joining us for that. And then on to Pune, where we will have some satsangs. And then to Mumbai, where we will have a Kriya initiation and also a large public talk. And then from Mumbai, we briefly stop in Calcutta to visit Master's family at his boyhood home, 4 Garpur Road. Then back to Gurgaon and flying out. We're just there for 1 day, and then we fly back to U.S. But I just wanted to let you know how grateful we are, both on a personal level and on behalf of the great work that Master and Swamiji have started through Ananda, to have souls like all of you coming that so appreciate the real depth of what Master came to bring, and you're allowing it to transform your lives. This isn't just a quick, I'll go and have this class and then leave, but you're making it the core of your life. And we did this afternoon, a young woman came who is starting an internet radio, or internet magazine, I guess it is. And so she interviewed us, and they recorded it, videoed it. And she started off with the question, what is Ananda Sangha? And what is it bringing to the world? And that's always a good question to ask ourselves, and just say, yes, what is it? What is it that we're doing? Because you can get so caught up in the details, you lose the bigger picture. And what Jyotish answered the question first, and answered it very well. He just said it's based on the teachings of Yogananda, and it's to help people have an integrated life of yoga meditation, Kriya Yoga, but then activity in the world, integration. And I think that's the unique contribution that Ananda Sangha has to bring to the science of yoga and meditation in the world today, because you can learn meditation from many sources, and valid ones, many schools of meditation. We're not saying we're the best or the only one by any means, but what Ananda does bring is a sense of shared effort on the spiritual path. And so you feel that your guru buys, you look in their eyes and you say, they're making this a big priority in their life, if not the top priority, certainly a central priority in their life. And they're trying to have their practices of meditation and the changes that it brings about in our consciousness, they're trying to let that diffuse out into everything they do with their relationships, and their working with their family and their business and their health, all recreation, relaxation, all things can be improved and uplifted by the teachings that our great gurus have brought to the world at this time. And so we feel in returning repeatedly and joyfully to India, we can see how people are really taking these teachings to heart. And some of you we've just met for the first time, but some of you we have met for a number of years and traveled together, gone to pilgrimage together, and shared time together. And we can see sincerely in all of you how you're changing, how there's peace in your face, how there's joy, how the Guru's presence is coming more alive in your heart. And it's, in a way, one could say that Ananda Sangha is like a great wave of spiritual energy that gathers more and more momentum as more and more little individual droplets of individual souls join in this great wave. And it's just sweeping away all the confusion and the darkness, the shadows, the lack of understanding of the purpose of life. And it's just, I think this great wave will, as our Guruji said, it will be one of the transforming powers of the world today. And when we come back and see all of you, we see how this is possible. And it's true in all of our centers throughout India, just wonderful souls with deep sincerity. A friend of ours who's here tonight was talking with us recently, and he said he has a colleague who also is on our path, part of the Chennai Sangha, and they both worked in the same office, but they didn't know that they were each devotees because it was just a workplace. But the one young man commented when he met the other one, he said, but he had one face. And I like that expression very much, because what he was saying was he was not duplicitous. I could tell that he was sincere, and what you saw, what he presented, was genuinely who he was. And that is another wonderful quality about the devotees of Ananda. There is a genuineness, a naturalness, a friendliness. It isn't like we stand on some kind of a pedestal and so forth, because we know. One time someone kind of challenged me and said, kind of a worldly person was saying, well, they treat you differently than they treat other people at Ananda. And I said, oh, I hope not. Because if I allow that to happen, then I'm getting into my ego. I don't want to be treated differently. I just want to be able to honestly say, I'm a seeker just like you. I haven't found God yet. I haven't achieved samadhi yet, but I'm a seeker like you. And I've had the wonderful fortune of spending many decades of my life in the association with Swami Kriyananda. But other than that, I'm just working my way towards God like everyone. So we just wanted to say all this, even though it's not on the topic exactly. But since our time in India is coming to a close, and this is our last chance to kind of speak to everyone, all of our friends throughout India, we thought we would just take this little opportunity. So our topic tonight, respect. Treat others with respect. If you despise them, as Swami wrote, they will find ways to treat you with contempt. And haven't you found it so that if you try to avoid someone or try to undermine them a little bit, they're always kind of shooting arrows back at you. But if you just accept them for who they are, then it neutralizes the situation. And our Guruji, Yoganandaji, Swami tells us that he treated everyone with respect. Here he was an avatar, and he would mix with people no matter what kind, and he would always see the best in them. once there was some kind of gathering at a hotel, and a man came up to Master, and he was a little bit inebriated, and he kind of put his arm around Master in a very overly familiar way, which none of the disciples would have done. And there was a young Bengali disciple with Master, and he made some kind of a comment, like, oh, disparaging comment, look at this man, he's drunk. And Master said, and the man couldn't understand because it was in Bengali, but Master chastised the young man. He said, no, no. He said, don't say anything. He too is a child of God. And so in a way one could say the greater the consciousness of an individual, paradoxically, the more they treat everyone with respect because they see the God in that person. They don't see the flaws. Again, Master said, if I wanted to start criticizing the organization that in America, Self-Realization Fellowship, he said, I could start now and never stop. But why look at the flaws? Look at the virtues. And so when we think of the word respect, it means to acknowledge sincerely and internally the virtues and the positive qualities of another human being or another business, another organization, whatever it might be, but to acknowledge the positive virtues and not to say, oh, but what about this and this and this? You know, so again, Swamiji was so much like that. He would never let us speak critically of anyone else. He just would stop you in your tracks. There was one man who was in charge of one of our centers, and Jyotish and I went to visit, and as soon as this was not in India, so and this was many years ago, but so no one and I'm not speaking critically of anyone here, but as soon as we went to this center, everyone said, can I talk to you? All the members wanted to talk with us, and we always know that's a warning sign. Something's wrong. And so one by one, they began saying, oh, this leader, this man did this, and he did that, and he's not done this right and not done, and they were valid complaints. So we went back to America. This was in Italy, this was happening. And Swami called us over because he knew we were returning. And he said, well, how are things going? And we said, well, Swami, and that's all we said. Well, Swami, and he knew where we were going, and he just cut us off. And he said, I don't want to hear anything more. And that was the end. And he wanted to give this person a chance to prove that he respected their potential. And so he wanted to give them a chance to prove that they could do this job. What happened? What's the rest of the story? The person couldn't do the job well. He took it to his ego, and he was bossing everyone around. And finally, it was interesting. We were with Swami, and someone else was visiting from Italy, and he said, how are things going? And the person said, oh, very well. This person who's leading, he's like a comedian. He's always making jokes, and Swami, that was all Swami needed to hear. He went right to the phone. We were sitting there, and he called Italy, and he said, I want you to come, to this man, I want you to come back now. And it was very interesting because he respected the person's free will, he respected their ability to try to do a good job, but then there was that moment where he realized it was going too much in that other direction. Not a critical word. He didn't look at us and say, you were right. He just said, and he gave the person a very nice position, but not of leadership. And so it's such a wonderful quality, and that's also a quality of our Ananda Sanghas and our communities everywhere. What holds them together, because you have 250, 300 people at Ananda Village, for example, that are all working together and sharing, facets of their life together. And it would be so easy for that to just fall apart due to tension and factionalism or taking people's sides, or he wasn't treated fairly. But there's an innate respect, and it comes from how Swamiji treated all of us, that every person has the right to be themselves. Maybe it's not how you would live your life, but that's not the determining factor. To look at the virtues in every individual. And once we stop, we turn off that critical faculty that says, I have to find what's wrong with that person. Then you turn on the opposite. I want to see what's right about that person. I want to understand them. I know when I had very good training as a little child, because my mother was a woman of compassion and kindness. And when I was little, if I would come home from school and maybe another child had teased me or been mean to me or something, very often parents get very defensive, and now I'm going to call that person's mother and give them a piece of my mind. My mother would always sit me down and she would say, let's try to understand that person. Not they're wrong and what a bad person. Let's understand why they would act that way. And it was, as a little child, it was a hard lesson because I wanted her to say, oh, I'll defend you. But she trained me, and it was good training to just look and see. And those of you who have children, I really suggest that way of working with them. Don't always think that the world, don't always have them, don't raise them in such a way that they expect the world will always treat them in the way that they want. Help them to see the world is a mixed bag, good and bad. People will treat you well, they will treat you poorly. But if we go beneath that and try to understand what's motivating them, then we can accept whatever comes. And so and concurrently, the opposite, it's not concurrently, but on the opposite side, if we don't treat people that way, they can feel our thoughts, they can feel our judgment. I know Jyotish told me once he went to, he and another man were playing a sport game together. It's a game called handball. I don't know if you play it here. It's a little court and you have a little racket. And so they were playing doubles. So he was on the team with another man. And then there were two on the other team that they were playing against. And Jyotish is a good athlete. And so he'd hit the ball, but whenever it was the other fellow's turn to hit it, the partner would always miss it. And Jyotish said, I started having negative thoughts towards him. I started thinking, can't he ever hit the ball? And he said, I realized the more I thought that, the worse he got. And finally, he just, if the ball was coming this way, he'd run that way. And so then Jyotish quickly realized, and he said, I've got to start making him feel better. And so if he missed a shot, he would say, nice try, good try. And he was putting out positive energy toward the man. And he said it just began to change. And the man got better and better. And I don't know, did you win?
I don't remember being one against ourselves.
Anyway, it's a very important principle, and it's certainly true in family life. If you're having critical thoughts against someone, immediate family, extended family, people are sensitive. They feel our thoughts. It's this world, we don't live in walled off. Our thoughts are, there was an American philosopher, I think it was Emerson, who said, your thoughts are so loud that I cannot hear the words you speak. And it's true. It's true. We project our thoughts. And that's why people loved being around Swamiji or any of the saints. There was an amazing story because they feel our love. They project love for us, and we can feel that he accepts me, he knows me. There was a young man who was a member of Ananda for many, many years. He was a very quiet man, and he worked in the computer industry. but so he didn't work with Ananda, but he was always there for meditations and so forth. And after many years, he said to me once, he said, I've only spoken to Swamiji 3 times, but he's my best friend. And he just had that because Swami projected to him that. And there was a wonderful story that we read in the life of Anandamoyi Ma. And in this story, she was having a satsang, and the men were sitting on one side and the women on the other, because it was more traditional and conservative. And all of a sudden, this crazy man burst into the room, and his hair was wild, and he was dirty and disheveled and raggedy clothes, and everyone was upset, and Ma said, it's okay. And she just projected love to him, and he went and sat down with the man, and he was quiet for a while. He was kind of feeling her blessedness and high state. And then she had a big bowl of fruit, and she passed it around, and everyone took, for prasad, she blessed it, and then everyone took a fruit. But when this crazy man, he got an orange, somehow he lost control again, and he took the fruit and he threw it at Anandamoyi Ma with great force, and it hit her. And the disciples were horrified, and they took the man and they very roughly dragged him out and threw him out. And then Ma said to them, you shouldn't have done that. And the 2 men who threw him out, she said, I want you to fast for 3 days to make penance for the anger and the judgment that you had toward that man. And then a few days went by, and the man returned. But this time, his hair was nicely combed and cut, very clean, nice clothes. And he went and sat quietly just in the corner, and everyone was amazed. And finally, Ma said, what has happened to you? And he said, well, Ma, I am from a very good family. I have a good education. But at a certain point, it was like I became possessed. And I lost who I was, and I was a raving man. And he said, but when I threw that orange at you, I felt such remorse. And I felt so sorry that I had done that it drove all the negativity out of me, and I returned to my true self. And he became a very close disciple of Ma for many, many years, for the rest of his life. But she did not judge him. She just accepted him for what he was and tried to connect with who he really was. And because of the power and everyone else was judging him and rejecting him, but the saints don't do that. They accept even that kind of person. And so, and in that respect and caring, his life was returned to a beautiful life once more. And so that's a dramatic story, but in so many little ways, we can do this for each other. If one of our friends or family makes a mistake, don't make them, they know they've made a mistake. You don't need to drive it in and make them feel bad. Same with again, hearkening to my mother, and I'll conclude and let Jatish speak. But I have a brother, and he was always making bad decisions. But my mother never criticized him. She said he's just trying to find his way. And eventually he did. And he's led a very, very good, helpful life to others. But I know in large part it was because my mother just accepted him, didn't condemn him, but treated him with respect. And when we do that for each other, it's ennobling to us, because we are seeing the world around us as God sees it. We are seeing other people as God sees us. And then we can become a channel for God's love, and we can walk with humility and simplicity in the world and feel that God is respecting us for how we've tried to attune our lives in this divine way.